This is Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth. We are in Acapulco at Anarchy 2017, and I am joined right now by Danny Shine, the original Love Police. And as you know, Danny, I hooked up with Charlie Veitch back in the day, and he was kind of emulating some of the things you were doing. I want to get your thoughts on Charlie Veitch and what happened there. But first of all, tell us a little bit about the Love Police and how you came up with this whole concept and essentially created this movement a long time ago.
Firstly, I didn't create any movement. I have a real problem with the idea of a movement because a movement can be controlled, and so I didn't create a movement.
Let's just say you inspired people.
Okay. I mean, I had been publicly speaking at Speaker's Corner for quite some time, and then I met Charlie, and we started. He had this megaphone, and we started doing stuff together, and it worked really well. But after a few months, I had this feeling that I couldn't carry on with him because I felt like he was kind of doing it for, I felt unsafe around him, and what I was doing was pretty provocative anyway. But to feel unsafe around him, so I basically cut off my relationship with him after only a few months. And I haven't heard from him for years.
Right. Well, he essentially continued doing what you guys had been doing, and at that point, I remember I invited Charlie to come down to be in my film, Into the Fire, and it was during the release of our film that he kind of flip-flopped on his position on 9/11, and it really ticked off a lot of people within the movement. What are your thoughts on his kind of? People have always asked me, Dan, what's going on? I've been called a shill just for being associated with the guy. What's your take on his flip-flop of the 9/11 truth movement?
I think it's actually, I think he was a very useful person in terms of teaching us that we must be always very skeptical, healthily skeptical of anybody. If people are upset by his flip-flopping, then they need to check inside themselves. Why did they give away their power to somebody else? So what if I don't care what anybody, it doesn't make any difference to me what anybody does or doesn't do. So I think he was quite a useful teacher for that. I mean, I don't really know what to say on this. This is unedited, right? Yeah. Okay, so I don't really want to spend too much time on him. He has nothing to do with my life anymore. I'll just say one little thing, is that if you want to understand about what the problem was, just look up The Real Charlie Veitch and Ian Tomlinson on YouTube, and a two-minute video will give you enough information. Just go through that video. There's nuggets one after another in that video, and work it out for yourself.
I would agree. We spent enough time talking about Charlie Veitch. If you guys want to check that out, look it up, check it out for yourself. In terms of the Love Police or anything that you're doing, what's in the future plans for Danny Shine? I mean, you're here at an anarchist conference, so you're still involved. What's the future for you?
Well, they say if you plan, then God laughs at your plans, or something like that. I'm not very. I don't do a lot of planning, and perhaps that's a problem. I acknowledge that I'm not very good at that. I just love doing what I do. So I go out in London 3 or 4 times a week. Sometimes it's film, sometimes it's not. What I'd like to happen this year is to get more people involved in London, just doing group activities. So I'd like that to happen. At the moment, I'm actually in a couple of weeks' time I'm going to Italy to do just a bit of promotion with a guy who I only just met, who claims that he's had 5 years of experience of using various legal mechanisms to, I think, nullify loans, mortgages, parking fines. So that's quite exciting, because as far as I'm concerned, this conference, as far as what I understand about it, I'm not sure I know what an anarcho-capitalist is, but this conference is about a very basic idea, which is that in order for us to live together, we don't have the right to initiate violence against anybody. And if somebody initiates violence, then and only then do we have a right to protect ourselves. And I think that the system we live in, the government and the corporations, everything the government does is backed by violence. And so I'm looking at just developing also within myself the ideas of challenging that violence. I think it would be very interesting, for example, to explore the removal of violence with finance. So what would happen, for example, if the government was, not that they would, but if the government was to say, okay, from tomorrow the police are no longer allowed to protect people who initiate violence in any situation. So that all loans and mortgages, they no longer any violence. You cannot violently get someone to give you back money that you lent to them. If you didn't want, if you want to lend someone money, fine. Like I've lent people money. I wouldn't dream of going and helping myself to their stuff, even if I'd have signed a contract for it. I mean, I wouldn't sign a contract. I wouldn't have a contract like that. So that's something that I'm sort of looking at developing. I'm also, again, I want to try and, I'd love it to try and catch on. I'd love what I do to catch on to people, because there's so much fun to be had. One of the principles that I'm just really committed to, just because it's for preservation of myself, is not to fight the system, but to laugh at the system. And the system is so ridiculous. I could go down a high street and just rip into almost everything that I see there, and I'd love other people to do that as well. So another idea I had is to encourage people to in England and maybe anywhere else where they've got jury service, is to encourage people to sort of creative, not protest, but creative kind of theatre creation around releasing people from jail who have been imprisoned for victimless crimes. I think that could be lots of potential in having a lot of fun doing that as well. Also spreading the knowledge about jury nullification, again, but to do it in creative ways, because I think if people realised how much fun it is to walk around the place with a megaphone, or even just to go into a supermarket and read out some Plato or something, or read out some philosophy. I think if they realised how much fun it'd be to go into a bank and sit down and meditate in there with some music on, or whatever it is, if people realise how much fun it is and how beneficial it can be also to one's own personal growth, I think they'd do it more.
Well, let me get back to your first two original points and try to bridge them and ask you the question, do you think that, let's say an example of passing a bill to enforce taxation on somebody, could that be considered violent? Because as you said, if they don't pay their taxes, men with guns show up and put them into a cage and maybe even take their homes. So passing a law in favor of taxation, could that be considered an act of violence?
How could it not? It completely is. It absolutely. I mean, I don't know. As of yet, I cannot understand. Only because up until I was maybe 40 years old, I had no idea, because I was brought up in this whole education system that just that have us believe that it's completely okay to. But no, of course it's violent. Absolutely, it's insane. And the lawyers, that write all these laws, they get, people don't often speak about that it's actually the lawyers and their twisted minds. That I've got loads of lawyers in my family, and I kind of forgive them, because they're not doing it knowingly. They think what they're doing is good and right, but it's crazy to have laws like that.
And so you want to try to bring attention to this by adding a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of humor to try to reach people, right?
Yeah, and I'd love other people to do it as well. There's literally, it's endless I mean, I could do it all day, every day for the rest of my life, right? You know, making up. There's loads of phone calls that could be made. You know, I've called up the Bank of England and said that I've said something like, I'm thinking of printing myself a couple of £1 million. Is that all right? And then they start talking about it, and then you ask them, well, you printed £365 billion. How come that's okay? You know, or calling up the police, non-emergency police line number, and asking them for my marijuana back that they stole from me, or calling up the tax office and ask them, you know, why would they violently come round to my house and steal my stuff, you know, so there's so many opportunities. There's so much fun to be had.
And you've been doing such a great job at it with your YouTube channel. Where can people go to watch your work? Give them the links if anybody's interested in checking out your, style of bringing comedy and entertainment to enlightening people.
Yeah, Social Experimentalist on YouTube, and my name, Danny Shine, on Facebook. That's at the moment. That's where it is.
Sweet. All right, man. Thank you.